A soldier visited his ex-wife to see his 5-year-old son, and was shocked when he saw him. The child he once tucked into bed now stands before him, bruised, silent, and terrified. His clothes hang off his fragile frame. His eyes dart to the hallway like he's hiding from something, or someone. The mother won't say much, but the boy whispers one name that changes everything. What this father uncovers next isn't just heartbreaking, it's criminal. And the deeper he digs, the more dangerous it becomes. Who's really controlling this home? And how far will they go to keep their secret hidden? What would you do if your child was crying for help and no one believed you? Before we begin, send a quick wave in the comments. Tell me your city, your country, your vibe. It's amazing how stories like this echo across the world. Marcus stood frozen at the doorway, his military duffel bag heavy on his shoulder as he took in the sight before him. The apartment complex, crumbling exterior and graffiti-covered walls had been his first warning sign, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. Bethany, his ex-wife, barely resembled the confident, vibrant woman he remembered from before his deployment. Her once healthy frame had shrunk, making her clothes hang loose on her body. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands fidgeted nervously with the hem of her worn sweater. The apartment behind her was dim and cluttered, a far cry from the well-kept suburban home they had once shared. "Beth," Marcus said softly, his throat tight with concern. "What happened here?" Bethany's eyes darted past him, scanning the parking lot before stepping back to let him in. "Come inside, Marcus. Tyler will be so happy to see you." The apartment's interior made Marcus's heart sink even further. The walls were bare except for water stains, and mismatched furniture that had seen better days filled the small living room. A single lamp cast weak light across the space, highlighting the general state of neglect. His military training had taught him to notice details, and right now every detail screamed that something was terribly wrong. The divorce settlement had been more than generous. Bethany should have been living comfortably with Tyler in a nice neighborhood, not in this rundown complex on the wrong side of town. "Where's Tyler?" Marcus asked, setting his bag down carefully. His eyes swept the room, cataloging everything from the empty fast food containers on the coffee table to the pile of unpaid bills visible on the kitchen counter. "He's in his room," Bethany replied, wringing her hands. "He's been talking about your visit all week." Marcus noticed how she wouldn't meet his eyes, how her shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. The woman before him was a shadow of the person who had once shared his life, who had raised their son while he served overseas. "Beth?" he tried again, keeping his voice gentle despite the alarm bells ringing in his head. "This isn't right. You and Tyler shouldn't be living like this. The support payments I've been sending..." Bethany's face crumpled for a moment before she caught herself. "Things have been complicated, but we're managing. Tyler's doing okay." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Years of military discipline helped him maintain his composure, but inside his mind was racing. The suburban house they'd chosen together during their marriage had been perfect for raising Tyler. Good schools, safe streets, friendly neighbors. This place was everything they had wanted to avoid for their son. The sound of small footsteps drew his attention to a narrow hallway. His heart clenched as he waited to see his boy, the child whose photo he'd carried through 3 tours in Afghanistan, the son he'd dreamed of hugging again during countless nights in the desert. But something was very wrong here, and Marcus's instincts, the same ones that had kept him and his unit alive in combat, were screaming at him to figure out what it was. Whatever had happened during his deployment had changed more than just their address, and he was determined to understand why his family had fallen so far. Marcus stood in the cramped living room, his heart pounding as he took in the sight of his son. 8 months had carved away at Tyler in ways that made his military-hardened stomach turn. The 5-year-old, who had once bounded around with endless energy, now stood motionless, his small frame drowning in a dirty t-shirt, about 3 sizes too big. "Tyler," Marcus breathed, dropping to one knee and opening his arms. "Come here, buddy." The boy didn't move. Instead, his large eyes darted toward the hallway, then back to his father, then to his mother. The instinctive fear response made Marcus's jaw clench. He'd seen that same look in villages across Afghanistan, in children who had learned to expect violence from any direction. When Tyler finally took a hesitant step forward, Marcus had to fight to keep his expression neutral. Dark bruises dotted his son's thin arms like cruel fingerprints, some fresh and purple, others fading to sickly yellow. The boy's cheeks, once round and rosy, had hollowed out. His dark hair, which used to be neatly trimmed, hung in his eyes in greasy strands. "It's okay," Marcus said softly, staying perfectly still. "I just want to give you a hug." Tyler inched closer, but when Marcus gently wrapped his arms around him, the boy's whole body went rigid. A small whimper escaped his throat, and he flinched as if expecting pain. Marcus could feel every rib through the thin fabric of Tyler's shirt, could smell the staleness of unwashed clothes. "He's just been a little under the weather," Bethany said quickly, her words tumbling out. "You know how kids are at this age. They get so picky about food." Marcus kept his arms loose around Tyler, letting his son set the pace of their contact. "Is that right, buddy? You're not feeling hungry these days?" Tyler's eyes flicked toward the hallway again. "Sometimes my tummy hurts too much to eat." "He's been so clumsy lately too," Bethany added, wringing her hands, "always running into things, falling down." "You remember how accident-prone he was as a toddler?" Marcus did remember. He remembered a confident little boy who had tumbled while learning to walk, who had bounced right back up with a giggle. This wasn't the same thing. The bruises on Tyler's arms showed clear finger marks, and older bruises peeked out from under his collar. "Why don't you show me your room, Tyler?" Marcus suggested, keeping his voice light despite the rage building in his chest. "I bet you've got those toy soldiers set up somewhere special." Tyler's eyes widened slightly. "They're guarding the window," he whispered. "To keep watch." "Keep watch for what, buddy?" Before Tyler could answer, a door slammed somewhere in the building. The sound echoed through the thin walls, and Tyler jumped like he'd been shocked. His small hands clutched Marcus's shirt, trembling. "It's just the neighbors," Bethany said quickly. "They're always so noisy. Tyler, why don't you go wash up for dinner?" "I'd really like to see his room first," Marcus insisted, standing up with Tyler still clinging to him. The boy weighed far less than he should have, another red flag that set off Marcus's internal alarms. "I don't think now is a good time," Bethany said, her voice rising slightly. "We should eat while the food is hot." Marcus looked around the kitchen. There were no cooking smells, no pots on the stove, no signs of meal preparation, just more empty beer bottles and a stack of old pizza boxes. "It'll just take a minute," he said, already moving toward the hallway with Tyler in his arms. The boy's grip tightened, his face pressed against Marcus's neck. The bedroom was barely bigger than a closet. A bare mattress lay on the floor, stained and without sheets. A plastic bin held a jumble of dirty clothes. The only decoration was the set of toy soldiers lined up on the windowsill, standing at attention just as Marcus had shown Tyler how to position them. "They're still watching," Tyler whispered. "Like you taught me." Marcus swallowed hard. "That's right. Always stay alert. Always keep watch, just like we talked about." He set Tyler down gently and crouched to his level. "Buddy, I need you to be brave like these soldiers. And tell me something. These bruises on your arms, did someone hurt you?" Tyler's lower lip trembled. His eyes darted to the doorway where Bethany stood, her arms wrapped around herself. "Tyler, don't," she said softly. "Remember what we talked about?" "Remember what who talked about?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice steady despite the anger threatening to break through. "He gets mad," Tyler whispered, so quietly Marcus almost missed it. If we tell, he gets really mad. Marcus had seen enough. In Afghanistan, he'd learned to read situations quickly, to recognize when someone was being controlled through fear. Every sign was here: the flinching, the constant vigilance, the careful monitoring of what they said. His son wasn't just being neglected, he was being systematically abused. "Bethany," he said, standing up slowly, "we need to talk. Now." "Marcus, please," she said, backing away from the door. "You don't understand. Garrett's just going through a rough time. He's not usually like this." "Not usually like what?" Marcus asked, though he already knew. The boots by the door, the beer bottles, the bruises on his son. It all painted a clear picture. Not usually the kind of man who beats a 5-year-old? Tyler made a small sound and pressed himself against the wall, his eyes huge with fear. Marcus immediately softened his voice. "It's okay, buddy. No one's going to hurt you anymore. I promise." "You can't promise that," Bethany said, her voice cracking. "You don't know what he's capable of. You're not here all the time. You can't protect us when you're halfway across the world." Marcus looked at his son, at the bruises marking his small body, at the fear that had replaced his childhood joy. 8 months ago, he'd left a happy, healthy boy. Now he barely recognized the frightened child before him. "You're right," he said quietly. "I haven't been here, but I'm here now, and this stops today." Marcus stood in Tyler's small bedroom, his military training kicking in as he assessed the situation with growing concern. "Bethany, I need straight answers. What happened to the divorce settlement? The support payments? You and Tyler should be living comfortably." Bethany leaned against the door frame, her thin arms wrapped around herself. "Things got expensive. The economy's bad, and I had some setbacks. You know how it is." "No, I don't know," Marcus said, keeping his voice level despite the anger churning in his gut. "The payments I send would cover a decent apartment and plenty of food. Tyler's clothes are falling apart. He's clearly not eating properly." "He's just going through a phase," Bethany insisted, but her eyes wouldn't meet his. "Some kids are picky eaters, and he grows so fast, it's hard to keep up with clothes." Tyler had drifted closer to Marcus during their exchange, pressing against his father's leg like a shadow. His small fingers clutched the fabric of Marcus's pants. "And the bruises?" Marcus asked. "Those aren't from being picky or growing too fast." "He falls a lot, runs into things. You know how active boys can be." "Stop?" Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. "Stop making excuses. These aren't accidents." He gestured to the finger-shaped marks on Tyler's arms. "Someone's hurting him." Bethany's face crumpled. "You don't understand. You're not here. You don't know how hard it's been." Tyler tugged at Marcus's pant leg, and Marcus crouched down to his son's level. The boy leaned in close, his breath warm against Marcus's ear as he whispered, "Uncle Garrett gets really mad." Marcus felt his spine stiffen. "Uncle Garrett?" Bethany's sharp intake of breath was all the confirmation he needed. "Who's Garrett, Bethany?" He's just someone who helps out sometimes," she said, but her voice trembled. "He's been good to us." "Good to you?" Marcus looked pointedly at Tyler's bruises. "This is what you call good? You weren't here." Bethany's voice rose. "You were off in Afghanistan, and I was alone, and he helped with the bills, and—" "I need some air," Marcus cut her off, his jaw clenched tight. "And you need to think very carefully about what's been happening here." Bethany wrung her hands. I need to get some things from the store. Will you watch Tyler?" Marcus nodded stiffly, and Bethany hurried from the apartment. As soon as the door closed, Tyler's demeanor changed slightly. His shoulders relaxed a fraction, though he still kept close to his father. "Daddy?" Tyler's voice was barely above a whisper. Want to see something? Of course, buddy. Tyler dropped to his knees beside the thin mattress on the floor. He reached underneath and pulled out a shoebox, handling it with careful reverence. Inside, nestled in a bed of crumpled tissue paper, was a collection of toy soldiers, the ones Marcus had sent from overseas. "They're my special guys," Tyler said softly. "They help me be brave." Marcus's throat tightened as he watched his son arrange the soldiers with practiced care. Some were scratched and dented, but Tyler handled each one like treasure. "Where do you keep them when you're not playing with them?" "Hidden," Tyler said. "Uncle Garrett doesn't like toys. He says they're for babies." His small hands trembled as he picked up another soldier. "He threw my fire truck in the trash." Marcus sat cross-legged on the floor beside his son. "Tyler, can you tell me about Uncle Garrett? When did he start staying here?" Tyler's movements became more nervous. After Christmas, he has a big voice and big hands. The boy's fingers unconsciously traced the bruises on his arms. "He lives here now, in Mommy's room." "Does he hurt you often?" Marcus kept his voice gentle, though rage burned in his chest. Tyler arranged another soldier with painstaking precision. "When he drinks the angry juice, or when I make too much noise, or when Mommy cries." His lower lip trembled. "Sometimes he makes me carry packages to people, heavy ones. He says if I tell anyone, he'll hurt Mommy." Marcus's training helped him maintain a calm exterior, but inside, alarm bells were ringing. Packages, a criminal using a child for deliveries. The implications made his blood run cold. "The soldiers help," Tyler continued, touching each toy with reverence. "I pretend they're you keeping watch, like you taught me." Marcus watched as his son lined up the plastic figures in defensive positions around the shoebox. The careful placement, the strategic positioning. Tyler was creating a fortress, a safe space, in a world that had become dangerous and unpredictable. "This one's the leader," Tyler said, holding up a slightly larger figure. "He protects everyone else, like you did in the desert." Marcus gently took the soldier from Tyler's hand, examining the worn plastic. "You know what, buddy? These soldiers are very brave, but you're even braver." Tyler looked up, his eyes wide. "Really?" "Really. And you don't have to be scared anymore. I'm home now, and I'm going to make sure you're safe." "But Uncle Garrett says—" "Uncle Garrett is wrong," Marcus said firmly, "about everything, and he's never going to hurt you again." Tyler's lower lip trembled. "Promise?" Marcus pulled his son into a gentle hug, feeling the boy's rapid heartbeat against his chest. "I promise, buddy. No more hiding. No more being afraid." Tyler melted into the embrace, his small body shaking with silent tears. Marcus held him, rocking slightly, as his mind raced through possible courses of action. His son was being abused and exploited by a criminal. His ex-wife was either complicit or coerced. The situation was more dangerous than he'd initially imagined. But one thing was certain: he wasn't leaving this apartment without his son. Whatever it took, whatever he had to do, Tyler would be safe. The toy soldiers had kept watch long enough. Now it was his turn. Marcus sat in his rental car outside the county courthouse, his laptop balanced on the steering wheel. After 20 years in the military, he knew how to gather intelligence efficiently. Public records were just the start, but they told a disturbing story. "Garrett Thomas Blackwood," he muttered, scrolling through the court documents, age 38, 3 assault charges in the past 5 years. His jaw tightened as he read the details. Bar fights, domestic disputes, a restraining order from a former girlfriend. The construction company where Garrett worked as a foreman was easy to find. Marcus had driven past the site earlier, noting the heavy equipment and stacks of building materials. But it was the financial records that painted the clearest picture of the man who had invaded his family's life. Multiple bankruptcy filings, tax liens, gambling debts to known loan sharks. Marcus's training helped him piece together the pattern. Garrett was a man drowning in debt, desperate for money. The kind of desperation that made people dangerous. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Hey, Mike, remember that favor you owe me from Kandahar?" He waited while his old military buddy, now working in local law enforcement, checked some records. "Yeah, your guy Blackwood's known to us," Mike confirmed. "We've had reports of him running an illegal loan operation out of that construction site. Nothing we could prove yet, but word is, he's using the business to launder money." Marcus thought of Tyler's whispered confession about delivering packages. His blood ran cold. What about domestic situations? 2 previous girlfriends filed complaints. Both dropped the charges. Classic pattern. He finds vulnerable women, moves in, takes financial control. Mike paused. "Marcus, if your family's involved with this guy..." "I'm handling it," Marcus said firmly. "Thanks for the intel." He spent the next few hours methodically building a picture of Garrett's activities. The construction foreman job was legitimate, but it served as cover for shadier dealings. Loan sharking, possibly drug distribution. The kind of operations that generated cash that seemed to vanish into thin air, until Marcus checked the local casino records. "Gotcha," he muttered, noting the frequent visits, the massive losses. Garrett was feeding a gambling addiction, burning through money as fast as he could get it. And when his own funds ran dry, he'd found a new source. Marcus pulled up his own bank records, tracking the support payments he'd been sending Bethany. Large withdrawals appeared shortly after each deposit. Withdrawals that coincided with Garrett's casino visits. The divorce settlement money showed the same pattern. Bethany's accounts had been steadily drained over the past 6 months. He leaned back in his seat, pieces clicking into place. Garrett had targeted Bethany when she was vulnerable, using charm at first, then gradually taking control of her finances. The abuse would have started slowly. Emotional manipulation, isolation, creating dependency. By the time the physical violence began, Bethany would have felt trapped. Marcus remembered the fear in her eyes, the way she made excuses. Classic signs of an abuse victim. She probably believed she had no choice but to let Garrett stay, to give him money, to endure his treatment of Tyler. His phone buzzed, another text from his network of contacts. This one included a police report from 2 years ago. Garrett had been questioned about using children to run errands for his loan shark operation. The charges were dropped when witnesses refused to testify. "Using my son as a drug mule," Marcus growled, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. The thought of Tyler being forced to participate in criminal activities made his vision blur with rage. He took several deep breaths, forcing himself to think tactically. Emotion wouldn't help Tyler. He needed a plan. The financial evidence was damning. Bank records showed Bethany's accounts nearly empty. The comfortable cushion from the divorce settlement, money meant to provide for Tyler, had been gambled away at blackjack tables and sports betting parlors. Marcus's support payments, intended to keep his son fed and clothed, had funded Garrett's desperate attempts to cover mounting gambling debts. A quick check of utility bills showed multiple late notices. The apartment complex's office confirmed 3 missed rent payments. Even with Marcus's regular support and Bethany's part-time job, they were falling behind. Garrett was bleeding them dry. Marcus pulled up recent photos on his phone. Tyler's thin frame, the worn-out clothes, the sparse apartment. The physical signs of financial abuse were everywhere. He just needed to connect the dots. He made one final call to a friend who worked security at the casino. "Yeah, I know Blackwood," the man confirmed. "He's here almost every weekend, always talking big about a sure thing, a way to get even. Lost $20,000 last month alone." $20,000 that should have been providing for Tyler. Marcus compiled everything he'd learned into a detailed file. Garrett's criminal record, the financial documentation, witness statements about the loan sharking operation, evidence of Tyler being used for deliveries. The pattern of abuse and control was clear. He'd seen similar tactics used by insurgents in Afghanistan: find vulnerable targets, establish control through fear and dependency, exploit them for criminal enterprises. The battlefield might be different, but the strategy was the same. The sun was setting as Marcus finally started the car. He had what he needed: proof of criminal activity, financial exploitation, and child endangerment. But evidence alone wouldn't protect his son. Garrett was desperate, violent, and had nothing left to lose. That made him dangerous. Marcus thought of Tyler's toy soldiers, hidden under the bed. His son had been fighting this battle alone for too long, trying to be brave in the face of constant fear. Well, the real soldier was home now, and Marcus Donnelly had never lost a fight when it came to protecting the innocent. He pulled away from the courthouse, his mind already formulating tactical options. The intelligence gathering phase was complete. Now it was time for action. The morning sun cast long shadows across the worn carpet of Bethany's apartment as Marcus sat across from his ex-wife at her small kitchen table. He'd waited until Tyler left for school, wanting to have this conversation without frightening his son further. "We need to talk about Garrett," Marcus said quietly, placing a thick folder on the table between them. Bethany's hands trembled as she wrapped them around her coffee mug. "There's nothing to talk about," she whispered, but her eyes kept darting to the apartment door as if expecting it to burst open at any moment. "I know everything, Beth." Marcus kept his voice gentle, remembering his training in dealing with trauma victims. The gambling, the loan sharking, the way he's been using our support payments, and most importantly, what he's been doing to Tyler. Her face crumpled, tears welling up in her eyes. "You don't understand," she choked out. "You can't just come back after 8 months and judge my life. You weren't here." "You're right. I wasn't here." Marcus leaned forward, his heart aching at the fear evident in her posture. "But I'm here now, and I need you to tell me the truth, for Tyler's sake." Something in his tone, the lack of accusation, the genuine concern, seemed to crack the walls Bethany had built around herself. Her shoulders sagged, and the tears began to fall freely. "I was so lonely after the divorce," she whispered. "The settlement money made things comfortable, but the house felt so empty. When I met Garrett at the grocery store, he was charming, attentive. He made me feel special again." Marcus listened silently as the story poured out. How Garrett had slowly wormed his way into their lives. Small gifts at first, offers to help with household repairs, always showing up when Bethany seemed most vulnerable. "He started suggesting I didn't need to spend so much time with my friends," Bethany continued, her voice hollow. "Said they were just using me for my money. Then he convinced me my sister was jealous of our relationship. Before I knew it, I'd stopped talking to everyone." She described how Garrett had moved in, claiming his apartment lease had suddenly ended, how he'd offered to help manage their finances, promising to make her settlement money grow through investments. "When did the abuse start?" Marcus asked softly. Bethany flinched at the word. "It was so gradual I barely noticed at first. He'd get angry over little things, dinner being late, the house being messy. He'd punch walls, break dishes. Then one day," her voice cracked, "he grabbed my arm so hard it left bruises. He cried afterward, said he was sorry, that his gambling debts were stressing him out. I believed him." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his anger in check. "Why didn't you leave?" "Where would I go?" Bethany's laugh was bitter. "He drained all our accounts, the settlement money, your support payments. It's all gone. He says no one would believe me anyway, that he'd tell people I gave him the money willingly, that I'm an unfit mother." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. "He said if I ever tried to leave, he'd hurt Tyler, that he knows people who could make us disappear." "Has he hit Tyler?" Marcus dreaded the answer. Bethany's face crumpled. "I try to protect him, I do. But sometimes Garrett gets so angry, and lately, he's been making Tyler run errands for him. Strange packages. When I objected, She pulled up her sleeve, revealing dark bruises. "I couldn't stop him." Marcus reached across the table, gently taking her trembling hands in his. "Beth, listen to me. What Garrett's doing. The isolation, the financial control, the threats. It's all textbook abuse. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're a victim of systematic manipulation by someone who knows exactly what he's doing." "But who would believe me?" Bethany whispered. "I let him move in. I gave him access to our accounts. I'm Tyler's mother, and I couldn't even protect him." "I believe you," Marcus said firmly, "and I have proof." He opened the folder, showing her the documentation he'd gathered. Bank records, police reports, witness statements about his loan sharking operation, evidence that he's using Tyler for his criminal activities. Bethany stared at the papers, her hands shaking. "He'll kill us if he knows we're talking about this." "I won't let that happen." Marcus's voice carried the quiet authority of a soldier who'd protected others in far more dangerous situations. "But you need to be honest with me, Beth. Is there anything else I should know?" She was quiet for a long moment, then reached for her phone. "Last week, when I tried to tell him to stop hitting Tyler," she pulled up a series of text messages, showing them to Marcus. The threats were explicit, detailed descriptions of what Garrett would do to both her and Tyler if she ever tried to leave or tell anyone. Marcus felt ice in his veins as he read the messages. "This ends now," he said quietly. "You and Tyler aren't trapped anymore. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere until you're both safe." "You don't know him like I do," Bethany whispered. "He's got connections, people who owe him money. He always finds out everything." "And I have 20 years of military experience and my own connections," Marcus countered. "More importantly, I have solid evidence of his crimes. But I need you to be brave, Beth. I need you to trust me." Bethany looked at him for a long moment, really looked at him for the first time since he'd arrived. She saw the same strength and determination that had first attracted her years ago, but now tempered with a deeper understanding of human nature. "I'm so scared," she admitted. "Every day I wake up wondering if this will be the day he finally loses control completely. If this will be the day Tyler gets hurt too badly to hide it anymore." "You're not alone anymore," Marcus assured her. "But I need you to tell me everything. Every detail, every incident, every threat. We can't leave any gaps that he could exploit." And so, as the morning light filled the small apartment, Bethany finally let down her walls completely. She told Marcus everything: the escalating violence, the financial manipulation, the ways Garrett had systematically destroyed her self-worth and confidence, how he'd convinced her that no one would help them, that she deserved the abuse, that Tyler's suffering was her fault for being a bad mother. With each revelation, Marcus's determination grew stronger. The woman before him wasn't the confident, independent person he'd been married to, but she was still there, buried beneath layers of trauma and fear. And his son, his brave little boy who'd endured so much, deserved to have his mother whole again. By the time Bethany finished talking, the morning had stretched into afternoon, but Marcus had what he needed: a complete picture of the hell his family had been living in, and the ammunition to end it once and for all. The apartment door burst open with a bang that made everyone jump. Garrett Blackwood filled the doorframe, his massive construction worker frame casting a dark shadow across the room. His eyes narrowed as they landed on Marcus, still sitting at the kitchen table with Bethany. "What the hell is this?" Garrett's voice was deceptively quiet, but trembling with barely contained rage. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Marcus stood slowly, positioning himself between Garrett and Bethany. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Tyler scramble into the corner of the living room, making himself as small as possible. The boy's reaction told Marcus everything he needed to know about how often he'd witnessed Garrett's explosive temper. "I'm visiting my son," Marcus said calmly, though every muscle in his body was tensed for action. His military training kicked in automatically, analyzing threats, calculating angles, identifying potential weapons within reach. "Your son?" Garrett spat the words. "You mean the kid you abandoned? The one I've been taking care of while you were off playing soldier?" "Taking care?" Marcus's voice hardened. "Is that what you call leaving bruises on a 5-year-old?" Garrett's face twisted with fury. Without warning, he lunged toward the hall closet, yanking it open with such force that the door slammed against the wall. He emerged clutching a wooden baseball bat, his knuckles white around the handle. "This is my house," he roared, advancing on Marcus. "My territory. You don't come in here acting like you own the place." He swung the bat in a threatening arc. "Get out. Now." "Garrett, please!" Bethany's voice was high with panic. "Put it down. We can talk about this." "Shut up." Garrett turned his rage on her. "You let him in here? Behind my back?" Marcus saw his opening the moment Garrett's attention shifted. Years of combat training took over. He moved with fluid precision, stepping inside Garrett's swing radius before the larger man could bring the bat to bear. One hand locked around Garrett's wrist, applying precise pressure to the nerve cluster there. The other hand twisted the bat away as Garrett's fingers spasmed open. Garrett howled in rage and pain, throwing a wild punch with his free hand. Marcus easily deflected it, using Garrett's own momentum to spin him away from Bethany. He could have ended the fight right there. A dozen lethal options presented themselves automatically, ingrained by years of training. But Tyler's frightened whimper from the corner stayed his hand. Instead, Marcus forced Garrett face first against the wall, controlling him with a simple joint lock that caused minimal visible violence. The baseball bat clattered harmlessly to the floor. "You're done," Marcus said quietly. "The abuse stops now." Garrett's laugh was ugly, even muffled against the wall. "You think this changes anything? You think you can just walk in here and play hero?" He twisted his head to the side, baring his teeth in a vicious grin. "I've got friends, soldier boy. Connected friends. People who owe me favors, people who know how to make problems disappear." "Is that a threat?" Marcus increased pressure slightly on the hold, making Garrett grunt. "It's a promise." Despite his position, Garrett's voice dripped with confidence. "You try to interfere with my business, you'll never see that kid again. I've got people watching this building right now. One phone call, and little Tyler takes a one-way trip to somewhere you'll never find him." Marcus felt a chill at the casual way Garrett delivered the threat. This wasn't just an abuser's desperate bluff. There was too much specific detail, too much certainty in his tone. It confirmed what Marcus had suspected from his investigation. Garrett's criminal activities went far beyond simple loan sharking. "Daddy?" Tyler's small voice quavered from the corner. "Is Uncle Garrett going to hurt us again?" The fear in his son's voice made Marcus's heart ache. He wanted nothing more than to make Garrett pay for every bruise, every moment of terror he'd inflicted on Tyler and Bethany. But he forced himself to think tactically. If Garrett really did have criminal connections watching the building, any violence now could put Tyler in even more danger. "No, buddy," Marcus said, keeping his voice steady and reassuring. "Nobody's going to hurt anyone." He released the joint lock, but maintained a ready stance between Garrett and his family. Garrett straightened up, rubbing his wrist. His eyes were cold and calculating now, the initial rage replaced by something more dangerous. "Smart man," he sneered. "Keep it that way. Now get out of my house before I make that call." "This isn't over," Marcus warned quietly. "Oh, it is." Garrett's smile was razor sharp. "You're going to walk out that door and forget everything you think you know. Because if you don't..." He glanced meaningfully at Tyler. "Well, accidents happen all the time in this neighborhood, especially to nosy little kids." Bethany made a choked sound of distress. Marcus forced himself to breathe steadily, fighting down the urge to wipe that smirk off Garrett's face permanently. He needed to think strategically. Garrett's threats had revealed valuable intelligence about the scope of his criminal operation. That information could be useful, but only if Marcus played this smart. "Tyler," he said carefully, "go get your backpack from your room, okay? We're going to go get ice cream." "He's not going anywhere," Garrett snarled. "He's my son, and it's my court-mandated visitation time." Marcus met Garrett's glare steadily. "Unless you want to explain to a judge why you're interfering with a custody agreement?" Garrett's jaw worked as he calculated his options. Finally, he stepped aside with exaggerated courtesy. 2 hours, he snapped. "Then the kid better be back here, and you better have thought real hard about what I said." Tyler darted to his room and returned with his worn backpack clutched to his chest. Marcus took his son's hand, feeling the slight tremors running through the small fingers. 2 hours, Marcus acknowledged, guiding Tyler toward the door. He caught Bethany's eye as they passed, trying to convey reassurance. She gave him a tiny nod, though her face was pale with fear. As they stepped into the hallway, Garrett's voice followed them. "Remember what I said, soldier boy. I've got eyes everywhere. One wrong move, and your kid disappears forever." Marcus kept his pace steady until they reached the stairwell. Only then did he allow himself to really feel the rage and horror of what he'd witnessed. His son's terror, Bethany's helplessness, Garrett's casual confidence in threatening a child. The confrontation had confirmed his worst fears about the situation, but it had also given him crucial information. Garrett wasn't just an abusive boyfriend. He was part of something bigger, something with enough criminal infrastructure to make his threats credible. That meant Marcus couldn't handle this through normal channels. He would need a different approach to get his family to safety. Tyler's hand tightened in his. "Daddy, are you mad?" Marcus knelt down to his son's level, forcing a gentle smile. "Not at you, buddy. Never at you. Let's go get that ice cream, okay?" But as they walked to the car, Marcus's mind was already racing, analyzing angles and forming plans. Garrett had revealed his true nature and his true threat level. Now Marcus knew exactly what he was dealing with, and he would do whatever it took to protect his son. Marcus sat in the waiting room of Chen Family Law, his hands clasped tightly together as he studied the framed photographs on the wall. Each one showed smiling families, children reunited with parents, couples emerging victorious from courthouses. They gave him hope, but also made his heart ache for Tyler. The receptionist called his name, and moments later he found himself facing Rebecca Chen across her desk. She was a petite woman in her early 40s, with kind eyes and an air of quiet determination that immediately put him at ease. "Staff Sergeant Donnelly," she said, extending her hand, "please tell me about your situation." Marcus took a deep breath and began sharing everything he'd discovered. The deteriorating living conditions, Tyler's physical state, Bethany's fear, and Garrett's threats. As he spoke, he pulled out his phone, showing Rebecca the photographs he'd carefully documented of Tyler's bruises and the apartment's condition. Rebecca's expression grew increasingly grave. She paused the conversation to grab a legal pad, taking detailed notes. "Your military training shows," she commented. "Most clients don't think to document everything so thoroughly." "Force of habit," Marcus replied. "In the field, details save lives." Rebecca nodded, then gestured to a photo on her desk showing her with a young boy. "That's my son, James. I'm a single mother myself. It's partly why I specialized in family law, particularly cases involving abuse." She met Marcus's eyes. "When I see what's happening to Tyler, I see what could happen to any child without someone to protect them." The personal connection made Marcus relax slightly. "Can you help us?" "Yes," Rebecca said firmly, "but I need to be honest with you about what we're facing." She pulled out a legal folder. Family court cases are complex, especially when abuse is involved. We'll need to build a solid case. Documentation of injuries, witness statements, evidence of the financial exploitation you mentioned. And even then, the process can move frustratingly slowly. Marcus leaned forward. Tyler doesn't have time for slow. Every day he stays in that apartment. I understand, Rebecca interrupted gently. But we have to work within the system to protect him long term. If we make one wrong move, Garrett could use it against us. She spread out several documents on her desk. Here's what we need to do first. We'll file for an emergency custody hearing based on the evidence you've gathered. We'll also request a guardian ad litem. That's an independent advocate appointed by the court to represent Tyler's interests. Marcus absorbed the information, his military mind automatically organizing it into actionable steps. What about Garrett's criminal connections? He threatened to make Tyler disappear if I interfered. Rebecca's expression sharpened. That's extremely concerning. Most of my cases involve domestic abuse, but this? She tapped her pen thoughtfully. This sounds like there could be organized criminal elements involved. Have you considered contacting law enforcement? Not yet, Marcus admitted. I was worried it might provoke Garrett into following through on his threats. A valid concern? Rebecca made another note. I have some contacts in the district attorney's office who specialize in organized crime. With your permission, I'd like to discuss this case with them, keeping Tyler's details confidential, of course. Whatever it takes to keep him safe. Rebecca studied the photographs again. Your documentation will be crucial. Courts need clear evidence, and you've provided that. But we'll need more. She handed Marcus a checklist. Keep recording everything. Dates, times, any interactions with Garrett or Bethany. Note any suspicious vehicles or people around the apartment complex. Document every visit with Tyler, especially any comments he makes about his home situation. Marcus took the list, noting how it resembled mission briefing documents he'd handled in the military. What about Bethany? She's a victim too. Absolutely, Rebecca agreed. We'll make sure she has access to domestic violence resources and legal support. Many abuse victims feel trapped, like they can't escape. Showing Bethany there's a way out could help her find the courage to protect Tyler. She pulled out a calendar. I want to file the emergency custody motion as soon as possible, but we need to be strategic. Garrett seems sophisticated enough to have legal representation. We need our case to be bulletproof. How long? Marcus asked, trying to keep the desperation from his voice. Rebecca met his gaze directly. Give me 48 hours to prepare the initial filing. Use that time to gather any additional documentation you can. And Marcus? Her voice softened. Try to spend as much time with Tyler as possible within your current custody agreement. He needs to know you're there for him. Marcus nodded, feeling a mix of hope and frustration. The legal process seemed agonizingly slow compared to the immediate action his military training demanded. But Rebecca's quiet competence and personal investment in the case reassured him. One more thing, Rebecca said, pulling out a business card. This is my personal cell number. If anything escalates, if you feel Tyler is in immediate danger, call me immediately, day or night. I have emergency contacts in law enforcement and child protective services. Marcus took the card, noting how Rebecca's son's artwork decorated her office walls. She wasn't just another lawyer. She was a mother who understood viscerally what was at stake. Thank you, he said simply. Rebecca stood, extending her hand again. We're going to help your son, Marcus. It won't be quick or easy, but I promise you this. I'll fight for Tyler as if he were my own child. As Marcus left the office, he felt more grounded than he had since discovering Tyler's situation. He finally had an ally who understood both the legal complexities and the emotional urgency of protecting his son. Rebecca's determination matched his own, and her expertise gave him hope that they could navigate this challenge together. He pulled out his phone and opened his notes app, already beginning to document everything from his meeting with Rebecca. He had 48 hours to strengthen their case. He wouldn't waste a single minute. Marcus spread dozens of financial documents across Rebecca's desk, his hands trembling slightly as the pieces started falling into place. Bank statements, loan applications, and property records painted a disturbing picture of Garrett's activities. Look at this, Rebecca said, pointing to a stack of loan documents. Bethany's signature appears on at least 15 different high-interest loans. But the handwriting varies. Some of these have to be forgeries. Marcus leaned closer, his military training in detail observation kicking in. These dates overlap too. No bank would approve multiple loans like this simultaneously. Because these aren't bank loans. Rebecca pulled out her laptop, bringing up several spreadsheets she'd compiled. I had my investigator look into some of these supposed lending companies. They're shell corporations, all leading back to different post office boxes around the city. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Loan sharking? Exactly. Rebecca's expression was grim. Garrett's using Bethany's apartment as a front for his illegal lending operation. Her name is on everything. The lease, utilities, even these questionable loan documents. If anything goes wrong, she'll take the fall. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. That's why she can't leave. He's made her legally responsible for his criminal enterprise. Rebecca nodded, pulling up more documents. It gets worse. These interest rates are astronomical. 400% in some cases. When people can't pay, Garrett uses his connections to collect. The apartment's location gives him easy access to vulnerable people in the neighborhood who need quick cash. And Tyler's been witnessing all of this. Marcus's voice was tight with anger. I'm worried about that too. Rebecca lowered her voice, though they were alone in her office. Children in these situations often get pulled into the criminal activities. Running messages, delivering packages. No. Marcus stood abruptly, pacing the office. The thought of his son being used as a pawn in Garrett's criminal operation made his blood boil. Rebecca watched him with understanding. This explains his threat about making Tyler disappear. He's not just an abusive boyfriend, he's protecting his criminal enterprise. If Bethany leaves or exposes him, she could face criminal charges herself. Marcus stopped pacing, turning to face Rebecca. How did you uncover all this? When you mentioned his connections, something felt off. Most domestic abusers don't have the sophistication to run complex financial schemes. She gestured to the documents. I have experience with organized crime cases from my time in the district attorney's office. The patterns here are classic loan sharking operations. This changes everything, doesn't it? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Rebecca nodded gravely. We're not just dealing with family court anymore. This is criminal territory. Garrett has resources, connections, and a lot to lose if he's exposed. That makes him incredibly dangerous. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. We need to adjust our strategy. Family court moves slowly, but criminal investigations can move fast when there's evidence of organized crime. I'm going to contact my old colleagues in the district attorney's office. Won't that put Bethany and Tyler in more danger? Marcus asked. Not if we do this right. Rebecca began writing rapidly. We can request protective custody for both of them as part of a criminal investigation. That would get them out of that apartment immediately, rather than waiting for family court proceedings. Marcus felt a surge of hope, quickly tempered by caution. Garrett will retaliate. Which is exactly why we need law enforcement involved now. Rebecca looked up from her notes. This isn't just about custody anymore, Marcus. Your son is living in a house that's being used for criminal enterprise. Every day he's there, he's at risk of being pulled deeper into Garrett's operation. She spread out the financial documents again. Look at these dates. The loan sharking operation has expanded significantly in the past 3 months. Garrett's getting bolder, taking bigger risks. That means Tyler's witnessing more criminal activity, possibly even being exposed to dangerous people coming to the apartment. Marcus studied the documents, his military training helping him spot patterns. These payment schedules, they're all due on the same days. That's when he must be collecting. Which means regular traffic through the apartment, Rebecca added. People desperate enough to borrow from loan sharks often resort to violence when cornered. Tyler's living in a powder keg. She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling in some favors. We need a task force. Financial crimes, organized crime unit, and child protective services all working together. But Marcus?" She met his eyes. "Once we start this, there's no going back. Garrett will know he's been exposed." Marcus straightened his shoulders, his decision already made. "Tyler's safety is all that matters. Whatever it takes." Rebecca nodded, already dialing. "I'll set up a meeting with the district attorney's office for tomorrow morning. We'll need everything you've documented about Garrett's activities, no matter how small the detail. In cases like this, seemingly minor observations can crack the whole operation open." As Rebecca spoke quietly into her phone, Marcus looked at the wall of family photos in her office. Happy children reunited with their parents. He imagined Tyler's picture up there someday, safe and smiling, far from Garrett's influence. The discovery of Garrett's loan sharking operation had raised the stakes dramatically, but it had also given them a weapon. Criminal investigations moved faster than family court. They could use the law to protect Tyler and Bethany both. Rebecca finished her call and turned back to Marcus. "The district attorney is expediting a meeting for first thing tomorrow. Until then, we need to document everything we can about Garrett's operation. Every detail matters now." Marcus nodded, pulling out his phone to access his notes. He'd been trained to observe and document in the military. Now those skills might help save his son from a different kind of war zone. Marcus sat in Rebecca's office the next morning, reviewing case files while waiting for their meeting with the district attorney. A gentle knock at the door made him look up. Rebecca entered with a grim expression that immediately set him on edge. "Marcus, we need to talk before the DA arrives." She closed the door carefully behind her. "My investigator just got back to me with some disturbing information about Tyler's involvement in Garrett's operation." Marcus's heart began to race. "What do you mean, Tyler's involvement?" Rebecca pulled out a fresh file and sat down across from him. "We interviewed some of Garrett's known associates who were willing to talk. They confirmed that Tyler has been actively used in the loan sharking operation." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "What?" "According to multiple sources, Garrett has been using Tyler as a lookout during his meetings with clients." Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. "He stations Tyler by windows or in hallways to watch for police or rival operators. The child has specific instructions about different warning signals." Marcus gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles turning white. "My son, my 5-year-old son." "There's more," Rebecca continued carefully. "Tyler has been trained to lie about what he sees. If anyone asks questions, he has a rehearsed story about playing games with Uncle Garrett. The witnesses say Garrett threatens to hurt Bethany if Tyler doesn't cooperate or if he tells anyone the truth." Marcus stood abruptly, needing to move. The small office felt suffocating as the horrible reality sank in. This explains everything: his weight loss, the constant fear, the way he checks exits. His military training had taught him to recognize trauma responses, but he'd underestimated the source. The investigator said Tyler shows unusual sophistication in understanding adult dangers. Rebecca opened the file. "He can identify unmarked police cars. He knows which neighbors might be informants. These are concepts no 5-year-old should comprehend." Marcus pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the window, trying to steady himself. "I knew something was wrong when I saw him. The way he flinched. How he wouldn't make eye contact. But this..." He turned back to Rebecca. "This is so much worse than I imagined." "The psychological manipulation is extensive," Rebecca agreed. "Garrett has created a complex system of rewards and punishments. Tyler gets small treats when he performs his lookout duties well, but faces threats of violence against his mother if he makes mistakes." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. He's 5 years old. He should be learning his ABCs, not watching for police cars. The trauma responses you noticed, they're not just from witnessing abuse. Rebecca stood and approached Marcus carefully. Tyler is being forced to actively participate in criminal activities. He's carrying the weight of protecting his mother through his silence. That level of responsibility and fear would be devastating for an adult, let alone a child. His toy soldiers, Marcus said suddenly, remembering the hidden collection under Tyler's bed. He told me they keep watch with him. He's trying to make sense of what he's being forced to do through play. Rebecca nodded sadly. Children often process trauma through play. The soldiers probably represent protection, something he desperately needs. Marcus turned away, struggling to maintain his composure. I've been in war zones. I've seen what trauma does to hardened soldiers. But this, using a child like this, the exploitation is calculated, Rebecca explained. Garrett knows that using Tyler creates multiple layers of protection for his operation. Children make excellent lookouts because they don't draw attention. Plus, Tyler's involvement makes it harder for Bethany to report anything without risking her son being implicated. And Tyler's been carrying this burden alone. Marcus's voice cracked. Every time I called from Afghanistan, he couldn't tell me. Every video chat, he had to pretend everything was fine. This explains his advanced fear responses, Rebecca said. He's not just afraid of physical abuse. He's constantly evaluating threats, watching for danger, trying to protect his mother. That kind of hypervigilance takes a tremendous psychological toll. Marcus sank back into his chair. How do we help him recover from this? How does a child come back from being forced into criminal activity? With immediate intervention and extensive support, Rebecca answered firmly. But first, we need to get him out of there. This information changes everything about our case. The DA will understand that we're not just dealing with domestic violence. This is systematic criminal exploitation of a minor. I should have seen it sooner, Marcus said, the guilt crushing him. All those deployments. I was protecting other people's children while my own son was being turned into a criminal lookout. You can't blame yourself, Rebecca insisted. Garrett is a sophisticated manipulator who deliberately created this situation. What matters now is that we have proof of criminal exploitation. That will fast-track everything. Protective orders, custody changes, criminal charges. Marcus stood again, military training taking over as he focused on action rather than emotion. What's our next step? The DA will be here in 20 minutes. We present everything. The loan sharking documentation, the witness statements about Tyler's involvement, your observations of his trauma responses. We push for immediate protective custody and a full criminal investigation. Marcus nodded, gathering his strength. Tyler needs to know this isn't his fault, that he doesn't have to protect everyone anymore, that he can just be a child again. He will, Rebecca assured him. But right now we need to focus on getting him to safety. Once he's protected, we can start helping him heal. They spent the remaining time organizing their evidence, both acutely aware that somewhere across the city, a 5-year-old boy was still being forced to watch for danger, carrying a burden no child should ever have to bear. Marcus stepped out of the courthouse into the crisp morning air, his mind still processing the mountain of paperwork they'd filed. The legal wheels were finally turning, but Rebecca's warning about the system's slow pace echoed in his thoughts. As he approached his truck in the parking lot, he stopped dead in his tracks. Crude messages had been scratched into the black paint, "Back off or else," on the driver's door, and "We know where you sleep," across the hood. The tires were slashed, and the windshield was spiderwebbed with cracks. His military training kicked in immediately. Marcus scanned the parking lot for threats while pulling out his phone to call Rebecca. Before he could dial, it rang. It was her. "Marcus?" Rebecca's voice was tense. "I just got another call. Third one today." "Let me guess. More threats?" He circled his truck, documenting the damage with his phone's camera. "They described my daughter's school uniform, said they know which playground she uses during recess." Her voice trembled slightly. "Marcus, These people aren't just making empty threats. They're watching us. My truck's been vandalized. They left some pretty clear messages. He sent her the photos. This is organized, Rebecca. These aren't just Garrett's buddies. This is his whole network showing force. I've dealt with intimidation before, but this is different. Rebecca paused. They know details about our families, our routines. I've already called my daughter's school to increase security, but that's not enough, Marcus finished. Just like waiting for the courts isn't enough. How long did you say it could take to get an emergency custody hearing? Best case, 3 to 5 days. Realistically, with the current backlog, could be 2 weeks. Rebecca sighed heavily. And that's just for the initial hearing. Even with our evidence of criminal exploitation, the full process could take months. Marcus watched a police car pull into the parking lot. Someone must have reported the vandalism. Tyler doesn't have months, Rebecca. He doesn't even have weeks. Every day he spends in that apartment is another day Garrett can use him for his operation. I know. Rebecca's voice dropped lower. Listen, Marcus, as your lawyer, I have to advise you to let the system work. Follow the proper channels. Document everything. But as a mother, she took a deep breath. If it were my daughter being forced to act as a criminal lookout, I wouldn't wait for the courts. These people have made it clear they'll use violence to protect their operation. Tyler is in immediate danger. Marcus watched the police officer examining his truck. They're escalating because we're threatening their business. Tyler isn't just a victim of abuse anymore. He's a witness to their whole operation. The longer he stays there, the more danger he's in, Rebecca finished. They know he could identify people, describe meetings, testify about their methods. A 5-year-old witness is still a witness. Marcus felt his jaw clench. And Garrett knows we're building a case? What happens when he decides Tyler is too much of a liability? Marcus, Rebecca's tone was cautionary. I can't officially advise any action outside the legal system, but I need you to understand something. If anything happens to Tyler while we wait for the courts, no judge's order will undo that damage. The police officer waved Marcus over. I have to go, Rebecca. The police are here. Document everything, she reminded him. And Marcus, be careful. These people have made it clear they're willing to hurt children to protect their interests. Marcus spent the next hour filing a police report, but he could tell it would lead nowhere. The officer was sympathetic, but realistic. Without witnesses or security camera footage, there wasn't much they could do except document the incident. Back in his rental car, hastily arranged after the truck vandalism, Marcus drove to Rebecca's office for their afternoon meeting. The parking garage was eerily quiet as he made his way to the elevator. Rebecca met him at her office door, looking exhausted. 3 more threatening calls since we talked. They're getting more specific, describing my daily routine, naming my daughter's teachers. Inside her office, papers were scattered across her desk, printouts of text messages, transcripts of threatening voicemails, police reports. The evidence of escalation was overwhelming. Have you thought about taking your daughter and staying somewhere else? Marcus asked. Already done. We're in a hotel under a different name. Rebecca collapsed into her chair. But we can't hide forever. And Tyler? He's still there, Marcus. Still being used as their lookout, still carrying secrets that could bring down their whole operation. Marcus stood at the window, watching the city below. The system isn't built for situations like this. It's designed for typical custody disputes, typical abuse cases, not criminal enterprises using children as tools. No, it's not. Rebecca shuffled through some papers. Even with all our evidence, the courts move at their own pace. They have procedures, schedules, required waiting periods. Meanwhile, these people are showing us exactly what they're capable of. A heavy silence filled the office. They both knew what wasn't being said, that following proper legal channels might protect them professionally, but it wouldn't protect Tyler from whatever Garrett might do when he felt truly cornered. Rebecca? Marcus turned from the window. As my lawyer, what's your official advice? She met his eyes steadily. My official advice is to continue documenting everything, wait for our court date, and let law enforcement handle any threats or intimidation. And unofficially? Rebecca glanced at a photo on her desk. Her daughter at a recent school play? Unofficially? I'm a parent first and a lawyer second. If my child was being used for criminal activities, being threatened, being traumatized every single day? She left the thought unfinished. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding the message beneath her careful words. The legal system would eventually work, but Tyler needed protection now. The escalating threats made it clear that Garrett's network wouldn't hesitate to silence anyone who threatened their operation, even a 5-year-old boy who knew too much. Whatever happens next, Rebecca said carefully, make sure Tyler's safety comes first, everything else. Custody agreements, court orders, proper procedures, all of that can be sorted out later, but only if he's alive and safe to see that happen. The weight of her words settled over the office as they continued reviewing their files, both acutely aware that time was running out for Tyler. Marcus knelt beside Tyler in the small playground near the apartment complex, keeping his voice gentle and playful. Want to learn a special game that soldiers play? He asked, watching his son's eyes light up with interest. Tyler nodded eagerly, clutching his favorite toy soldier. The bruises on his arms had faded to a sickly yellow, but new ones had appeared on his shoulders. Marcus forced down his anger, maintaining a calm demeanor for his son's sake. It's called breakaway, Marcus explained, carefully demonstrating with Tyler's small hand. If someone grabs your wrist like this, you turn your arm like a key in a lock, just like this, and pull straight back. Tyler practiced the movement, giggling as he successfully broke free from his father's loose grip. I did it! That's perfect, buddy, Marcus praised, his heart aching at having to teach his 5-year-old these skills. Now, if you ever need to play this game for real, where's the safest place to run? Tyler pointed to the convenience store across the street. Mr. Kim's store. He has cameras and a phone behind the counter. That's right. Marcus ruffled Tyler's hair, proud of how quickly he was learning. And what's our special code word if you're scared? Soldier, Tyler whispered, squeezing his toy tighter. And if I say it, you'll come running, right, Dad? As fast as I can, buddy. Every single time. From her perch on a nearby bench, Bethany watched them with worried eyes. She'd grown more cooperative since Marcus had confronted her about Garrett's activities, but fear still kept her trapped. Marcus caught her gaze and nodded reassuringly. Later that afternoon, Marcus met with Rebecca in her temporary office, a small room in the back of a coffee shop she'd deemed safer than her compromised workplace. The FBI is interested, Rebecca reported, sliding a coffee toward him. Your documentation of Garrett's loan shark operation matches their ongoing investigation into organized crime in the area. They're particularly concerned about his use of a minor in criminal activities. Marcus leaned forward. How soon can they move? They're building their case carefully. Using a child as a criminal lookout adds serious federal charges. But they need solid evidence. Rebecca lowered her voice. The problem is, they're seeing signs that Garrett's getting desperate. His gambling debts are mounting, and his associates are pressuring him about missing payments. He's becoming more erratic, Marcus agreed, thinking of the fresh bruises on Tyler. Yesterday, he threw Tyler's backpack across the room because the boy was too slow getting ready for one of their meetings. Rebecca's face hardened. The FBI agent I spoke with thinks Garrett might be planning to skip town, possibly with collateral from his operation, including financial documents with Bethany's name on them. And Tyler? Marcus felt his stomach clench. They're concerned he might take them both, either as hostages or to prevent them from testifying. Rebecca spread out several surveillance photos showing Garrett meeting with known criminals. The FBI wants to move carefully to build an airtight case, but Tyler doesn't have that kind of time, Marcus finished, his military training screaming at him about the escalating threat indicators. "I've documented everything about the immediate danger to Tyler," Rebecca said carefully. "Whatever happens next, there's clear evidence that you had legitimate reason to fear for his safety." Marcus understood her subtle message. She was building a paper trail to protect him legally, while acknowledging that traditional channels might move too slowly to protect Tyler physically. Through the coffee shop window, Marcus watched people going about their normal lives, unaware of the dangerous countdown happening in their midst. Every hour that passed brought them closer to either Garrett's arrest or his desperate attempt to escape. And Marcus couldn't risk Tyler being caught in the crossfire. Marcus pulled up to Bethany's apartment complex for his scheduled afternoon visit with Tyler, immediately noticing something was wrong. Garrett's battered pickup truck was parked at an odd angle near the entrance, its tailgate down and boxes hastily stacked inside. His military instincts went on high alert as he spotted movement through the apartment's window, frantic shadows darting back and forth. Approaching cautiously, Marcus heard raised voices and the sound of items being thrown. He pressed closer to the door, listening intently. "Move faster!" Garrett's voice boomed. "Get only what we need. We've got 10 minutes, tops." "Please," Bethany's voice trembled. "Tyler needs his medicine." "I said essentials only." Something crashed against a wall. "The kid can get new medicine wherever we end up." Marcus's heart raced as he heard Tyler crying softly in the background. Through the window, he caught glimpses of Garrett pacing, a pistol gripped in his right hand. The man's face was covered in sweat, his movements jerky and panicked. "The cops are closing in," Garrett ranted, waving the gun carelessly. "And Victor's guys want their money today. We're getting out while we still can." Marcus assessed the situation with practiced precision. Garrett was armed and unstable. Bethany and Tyler were being forced to pack, likely for a desperate escape attempt. If Garrett succeeded in taking them, Tyler could disappear into a nightmare of criminal exploitation and abuse. Through the window, Marcus watched Tyler trying to stuff his toy soldiers into his small backpack while Garrett berated him to hurry. The boy's hands were shaking so badly he kept dropping them. Bethany attempted to help him, but Garrett grabbed her arm roughly and shoved her toward the bedroom. "Get your stuff!" he screamed. "We're not waiting for those stupid toys." Marcus knew he had to act now. Once Garrett got them into that truck, the chances of finding Tyler again would plummet. The criminal's network of connections could help him vanish with a woman and child who appeared to be willing family members. Even if law enforcement eventually caught up, the trauma to Tyler could be devastating. Moving silently to the door, Marcus noted Garrett's position through the window one final time. The man was distracted, frantically shoving documents into a duffel bag while keeping the gun loosely pointed toward Bethany and Tyler. His mounting panic made him even more dangerous. He had nothing left to lose. Marcus touched the phone in his pocket, confirming that Rebecca's number was ready to dial. She had law enforcement contacts standing by, but they'd take precious minutes to arrive. Tyler didn't have minutes. His son needed him now. Taking a deep breath, Marcus prepared himself to confront the armed and desperate man who threatened everything he held dear. He could hear Tyler's muffled sobs through the door, could picture his son's bruised arms and fearful eyes. The time for careful legal maneuvering was over. His little boy needed his father to be a soldier one more time. Marcus burst through the door, startling Garrett, who spun around with wild eyes. "Get back!" Garrett shouted, grabbing Tyler and yanking the boy against his chest. The pistol pressed against Tyler's temple as the child whimpered. "Let him go," Marcus said evenly, his hands raised to show they were empty. His military training kicked in as he assessed the situation. Tyler's small body trembled, tears streaming down his face. Bethany stood frozen in the corner, her hands pressed to her mouth in horror. "Stay right there." Garrett's voice cracked with desperation. He backed toward the door, dragging Tyler with him. "I'm walking out of here with the kid, or nobody leaves alive." Marcus kept his voice steady, though his heart hammered. "Think about what you're doing, Garrett. Using a 5-year-old as a shield?" That's not going to end well for you. Shut up! Garrett tightened his grip on Tyler, making the boy cry out in pain. I've got nothing left to lose. Victor's guys are coming for their money. The cops are closing in. This kid is my only leverage. Tyler's frightened eyes met his father's across the room. Marcus saw a flash of recognition there as Tyler remembered their practice sessions. The games that taught him how to break free from someone's grip. It's okay, buddy, Marcus said softly. Remember what we talked about being brave? Garrett jabbed the gun harder against Tyler's head. Stop talking to him. One more word and I'll... Before he could finish the threat, Tyler opened his mouth wide and bit down hard on Garrett's hand. The boy's small teeth sank deep into flesh, drawing blood. Garrett screamed in pain, and his grip loosened just enough for Tyler to wiggle free. Marcus launched himself forward the instant Tyler broke away. He slammed into Garrett with full force, driving them both into the wall. They grappled for the gun, muscles straining as they fought for control. Garrett's finger squeezed the trigger, and a deafening shot rang out, sending plaster raining down from the ceiling. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the apartment complex. Marcus used Garrett's moment of distraction to wrench the weapon away, throwing it across the room. His fist connected with Garrett's jaw in a devastating blow that sent the man crumpling to the floor. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Through the window, Marcus spotted two men running from a parked car. Garrett's backup plan fleeing at the sound of the shot. Within moments, police cars screeched into the parking lot, officers pouring out with weapons drawn. Daddy! Tyler ran to Marcus, who scooped him up and held him tight. The boy buried his face in his father's neck, his small body shaking with sobs. I've got you, Marcus whispered, stroking Tyler's hair. You were so brave, buddy. So brave. Officers burst through the door, quickly securing Garrett and radioing for backup to pursue his fleeing associates. As they led the handcuffed man away, Marcus kept his son wrapped safely in his arms, feeling Tyler's racing heart begin to slow. The nightmare was finally over. In the weeks following Garrett's arrest, investigators uncovered a sprawling web of criminal activity. Detective Sarah Martinez stood in Marcus's living room, spreading photos and documents across his coffee table. Your intervention didn't just save Tyler, she explained, pointing to a complex chart of connections. It brought down an entire loan shark operation. Garrett's associates rolled on each other like dominoes. Marcus leaned forward, studying the evidence. What about Bethany's money? We've recovered most of it, Detective Martinez smiled. The divorce settlement, your support payments, it was all there, hidden in various accounts. Once the courts process everything, she'll have her financial stability back. The news brought relief, but Marcus's primary concern remained Tyler's well-being. 3 times a week, he drove his son to Dr. Peterson's child psychology practice. The office was bright and welcoming, filled with toys and art supplies that helped Tyler express his feelings safely. He's making remarkable progress, Dr. Peterson shared during one parent consultation. The nightmares are decreasing, and he's starting to play freely again without constantly checking for danger. Marcus watched through the office window as Tyler built a towering block castle, his face lighting up with childhood joy that had been missing for so long. The haunted look in his eyes was fading, replaced by the spark of imagination and adventure that belonged in a 5-year-old's expression. Bethany's own healing journey ran parallel to her son's. Her therapist, Dr. Rachel Cohen, helped her understand the manipulation tactics that had left her vulnerable to Garrett's control. During supervised visits with Tyler, Bethany slowly rebuilt trust with her son, reading stories and playing games together while working through their shared trauma. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you, she whispered to Tyler during one visit, tears streaming down her face. Tyler hugged her tight. It's okay, Mommy. Dr. Peterson says sometimes grown-ups get hurt too. Rebecca became a constant source of support through it all. Her legal expertise had helped secure Marcus's primary custody, but it was her gentle understanding that truly helped the family heal. She spent evenings helping Tyler with his reading, weekends at the park, and quiet moments simply being present when nightmares struck. 6 months after Garrett's arrest, Marcus took Rebecca to the spot where they'd first discussed Tyler's case. The small cafe had become their regular meeting place, but this time he had a diamond ring in his pocket. "You didn't just help me save my son," Marcus said, taking her hand. "You helped us build something new, something better. Will you marry me?" Rebecca's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. 1 year later, their blended family welcomed little Emma Rose. Tyler, now healthy and confident, took his role as big brother seriously. He sat cross-legged on the nursery floor, carefully arranging his toy soldiers around his baby sister's blanket. "These guys kept me safe when I was scared," he explained to the sleeping infant. "Now they'll protect you too." Marcus watched from the doorway of their new home, his heart full. The shadows of the past had been replaced by the warm light of healing and hope. His military training had prepared him to fight many battles, but protecting and rebuilding his family had been his most important mission and his greatest victory. Thanks for spending a moment here with me. If this story touched you, let's keep this connection going. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.